Hi, listener. Welcome to the More Than Me podcast with your host, Becky Harrington, sharing stories of women who decided to move outside of themselves and claim a higher purpose, because together we are more. In each episode, we'll dig deep into stories of women who shed their fear and shame so that they could claim their higher purpose. Each week, you'll leave inspired, free from the shoulds that have been bringing you down, and prepared to walk ahead towards your bright purpose. Experience a community that has forged a path before you and discover that you're not alone. Hi, listeners. This is the More Than Me podcast, and I am your host, Becky Harrington, and I want you to join me each week as we discover the triumphant stories of women who decided to have more for their lives and accept their purpose. This is a podcast for women who have a deep longing in their hearts, who crave community and are ready to step out in faith. This week, I'm super excited because I am joined with collective member Sallie Holder. And I got to see Sallie speak at our last event in Seattle. And since then, I can't tell you how many meetings I have been in where someone was quoting what she said at that event. It's like quotable moments by Sallie. And so, and I've even seen them online, or I've just been like on a Zoom call and someone's like, oh, when Sallie Holder said this, and so I'm sure today that we are going to get more quotable moments with Sallie, and you are in for a really big treat. We're going to dive deep into her story today, but before we do, Sallie, why don't you say hello and introduce yourself to our listeners?
Okay, thanks, Becky. Gosh, nothing like a setup that makes you feel a little pressure, right?
Oh, please.
So I live currently in Greenville, South Carolina. It's actually where I grew up. And my family and I just moved back here a couple months ago. I've got two great kids. I have an 11-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter, and a great husband that supports me as a female entrepreneur, which is so crucial. And I am a business coach and public speaker. I really only coach women who are female entrepreneurs, or women who really, much like the More Than Me collective, are really looking to achieve more in their lives and have more. I always kind of say, like, women, I think, feel that tug to be more and do more and have more long before they're willing to allow themselves to go and seek it out. But I think that when we are willing and ready to do that, we want to make things happen. So I love to help women really achieve their dreams through their business.
And Sallie, you have a lot of wisdom. I was actually wondering, what kind of training and background led you into what you're doing? Because there was so much, and even just following you on Instagram and social media, I'm like, where has this woman been? Because there are so many things that you say, and maybe it's just that you read a ton of books or you listen to a lot of speakers, but what's your background and how did you get where you are?
Yeah, I am a lover of learning, for sure. So I started my career as an attorney. I went to law school because that sounded like a successful career that women in business had, back in 2001. So I pursued law. I practiced law for 10 years because I just was going to make it work. And never liking it really all along the way, but I didn't know what else I could do. I didn't know what else I could be. And then I had an opportunity to manage a corporate and tax firm. So I ran that. I ran a real estate company. I ran a retail company. So you start to see, like, I'm searching for my purpose. And then along came a sales company called Stella & Dot. I was able to start that in addition to managing the corporate and tax firm because I like to stay nice and busy. And so I did that for 3 years in conjunction with the law practice. And then I went full-time with Stella & Dot for 3 years. And then a year ago, felt kind of that tug again and started my own company doing business coaching, which was a lot of what I was already doing with Stella & Dot. But really all along the way, I was helping people either, start their own businesses or do more within their own business. Because when I was practicing law, I was doing labor and employment law, which is really advising companies on the employer-employee relationship.
Wow. So, that's such an incredible journey. So how did you end up with More Than Me? How did you meet Tiffany and how did you become a collective member?
So Tiffany, I met through Stella & Dot. She was always somebody that intrigued me because we just seemed to be really like-minded, both women of faith, both women that really wanted to continue to help support other women. It's just been a really big kind of guiding light for me throughout my career, is just to find other women and us work together, collectively. And so when recently I saw her on Instagram and social media doing this, and then she reached out one day and said, described the More Than Me collective, I instantaneously knew that I definitely wanted to be a part of it.
That's awesome. I met Tiffany. She followed me on Instagram. I tell this story too many times. Our listeners are like, Becky, please stop telling the story. But I met her when I was living in my van. And so she had started following my story and just called me up and was like, girl, what is your deal? Who are you? So I really just met her for the first time in person in Boise. And so it's just been a few months that we've really known each other. And it's been so incredible, just all the women that have come into my life as a result of this journey. So excited to have a deeper relationship with you. I'm so excited to take our listeners deeper with you today. So if you're listening to this when we release it, so it's April of 2019, or if you're listening to it 5 years from now, who knows? But if you're listening to it in April of 2019, we are going to be, we've just finished our Dallas event. We are not going to be having any more events till the fall, but we are going to be releasing those dates and locations in the next few weeks. And we want you to start planning on being in person with us this fall. This movement is not about continuing to have a technology-based relationship with us. It's about an in-person relationship. And I can tell you that this is not the kind of event where the speakers come on the stage from the back of the stage and then exit the back of the stage and you never get to talk to them. This is the kind of event where you sit at the tables with them, right? And they give you hugs and they cry with you and they encourage you. And so we want you to make it a priority to be with us this fall. And so if that's something you need to save up for, start saving right now. Start a little savings account and start putting away the money that's going to be necessary, because I guarantee you the in-person events are worth it. I've been to the last two and it's already been a life-changing experience for me. So that's priority numero uno. The second one is that we want you to join our member program. And this is a program for audacious women who want to band together with us and live out their purposes. You're going to get to interact with this community of women every month. Sallie is on the Zoom calls. Mm-hmm. She leads these discussions. She shares her wisdom and expertise with us. She dives deep into our businesses and our lives, and it's made us so much better, which is why so many people are quoting Sallie these days. You get advice from coaches, marketeers, all different kinds of people. You don't have to have a business to join us. You just have to be a woman who's in support of other women and seeing what we can do together. The benefit of this organization is your participation. So that's why we need you there. If you're not there, we're not benefiting from you and you're not benefiting from us. And that's how this goes around. So if you're interested in that, go to morethanme.com, click on the podcast description. This is episode 6. Anything that we talk about today will be listed in your podcast description. So if you're listening on iTunes or Google Play, just click on the description. All those links are there. You don't even have to go to the website. So we're going to dig deep, and I'm going to push Sallie to uncomfortable places that she feels really comfortable going to.
Right.
Because that's the reputation I have. So,
Mm-hmm.
Sallie, when you were in Seattle, you shared a ton of wisdom. Like I said, Sallie has many, many quotable moments. She is a woman who brings wisdom just from her essence and her being. But she shared a specific story that really stuck out in my soul. And she talked about something that she had been hiding for a while. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Sallie?
Sure, because you're encouraging me so much. So about 2.5 years ago, I had, what everybody on the outside would have said is, quote unquote, the perfect life. I mean, I had a gorgeous new home that my husband and I had renovated, in a great neighborhood with 2 healthy kids, a career I thought I loved. I probably did at the time. And, I mean, it checked all the boxes for society's purposes. But the secret that I really was hiding from everyone else is that there was another part of me that wasn't fulfilled. And that's why I kind of tell my story and my history of, the many different careers I've had, because it's just kind of further evidence of me always searching for something more. And thinking that I could achieve fulfillment through external achievements. And that's really kind of, I think, what the rest of the world says. Like, if you have all these external pieces in place in the puzzle, then it will equal happiness. But it's the exact opposite. When you have happiness, the other good things will come. But I just didn't know how to achieve happiness. So, I had always along the way kind of used alcohol just as a means of, I used to call it just kind of work hard, play hard. And I thought that was okay, really. And then somewhere along the line, you never really know when that is, it crossed over into it not being okay anymore. And it was definitely, abusing alcohol. Definitely as a numbing mechanism, because I couldn't figure out why I had this lack of fulfillment. And I didn't want anybody to know. There was such a disconnect between how I felt on the inside and what I displayed on the outside. And I often felt, what in the world is wrong with me? Especially with people coming up to me and saying, you must be so happy, or you must be so proud of your accomplishments, or, oh my gosh, I see things seem to be going so well for you. And it was my dirty little secret that I didn't feel that way. Despite what everybody else would say, it wasn't what resonated on the inside for me. And so about in August of 2016, I had a couple of days of, I would just call it, I guess, excessive drinking, binge drinking, and realized, on the 3rd night in a row that when I didn't pick up my son from camp on time the next day, that I had really gotten stuck in this, world of drinking, and, realized I probably had a problem. It had crossed over the line and affected my kids in a way that I said I would never allow it to. And I came back home, and I went to see a counselor, and I said, I think I might have a drinking problem. And she said, okay, great. You might want to go to AA, or Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was like, oh, whoa, Libby. I'm just talking about a small problem. See, I've got all my stuff together, so I can't be an alcoholic. Like, that's extreme. I just drink heavily, on the weekends or every, third or fourth night. And she was like, oh, guess what? You can still be an alcoholic. But I honestly didn't know that. I wasn't the woman under the bridge, with a bottle in her hand, and I hadn't lost everything, and I didn't have all of the things that, a lot of people tell you happens when you have this disease. And because it didn't check all of those boxes. And, I was shocked. So I delayed it a little bit. And then, God has a wonderful way of intervening. I'll never forget driving down our main boulevard and having a moment in my car, completely alone. I don't even think the radio was on. I really can't remember, but in my memory, it wasn't, and feeling a literal tap on my shoulder and God just saying, have you had enough? And I burst into tears, and I remember thinking, yeah, I have, but I don't know what to do. And that's when I went back to a friend of mine who I did know had been in the program before. And she actually walked into my office, and I said, hey, I think I have a drinking problem. And she was like, okay, great. We'll go to a meeting in a couple of hours, and that's no big deal. And I think that was at that point all I could handle from God. It was the tap on the shoulder and then the ease into this world of recovery in a really kind way. And so it's been 2.5 years now since I entered recovery. It's been an amazing journey, the best thing I've ever done, the best gift, I've ever given, both to myself and to my family, for sure. And just to learn the best gift, I've given myself, because it's been the gift of learning about me and learning who I am, stripped away of the importance of all of the external factors. So,
what I loved the most about your story was that I think a lot of times when we think about when God's going to ask us to do something really hard or give up something that we've been hiding or that we have been holding on to really tightly, that we think that it's going to be with a bark, that he's going to do it in this really aggressive way.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've learned over time in my own life and through sharing other people's stories like this is that it's never more than a tap on the shoulder, like you just described. It's like it's like the most gentle call to your heart. And that's how he calls us out. But we get so locked up in thinking that the way that it's going to be is hard, that the way that it's going to be is going to be humiliating. The way that it's going to be is going to be more shame than we already feel on ourselves. This is going to be a more shameful process than the one that I'm already feeling like I'm living right now. Right.
Right.
And that when we finally tell that person that we've probably been thinking about for a while, like if I did come out, it would be to this person, that their first response is going to be like, well, how did this happen, Sallie? Wow. I don't even know if I know you. We've been friends for a long time. I can't believe, what else do I not know about you? Right. These are the things. Do you hear this voice in your head? These are the things that we say. And if you, listener, right now, if you're in this situation, you're probably, if I'm talking and you're like, yeah, this is what I've been saying to myself, I want you to hear this story. I want you to slow down and pay attention to what Sallie just said. She got a tap on the shoulder, a gentle, loving tap from her father saying, He didn't even say, give it up, Sallie. What is wrong with you? Like, you have a Bible, you know what I said.
Right.
Like, hey, honey, I love you. When
Yeah.
you're done, I'm here. When you're done, I'm here.
Yeah.
But you get to choose, right? You get to choose when you're done. And go ahead.
The crazy thing is that everything that you're describing is the pain and, the horrible reality of what we put ourselves through is all self-will.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's when we think we know what the outcome is going to be, when we think we know exactly the path that we're on, and all we have to do is maneuver it or force our way through. And that's what I find ends up causing so much of our pain. It's when we're in God's will and we can pull back and listen to and just let the circumstances be what it is that He creates for us, then things are much easier. They're not nearly as painful. And what I had been doing for so long was just forcing my will on every situation and thinking I knew better.
So let me ask you about the friend that you took this to. Because what I also love about these situations, and this is why AA works, is because in order for us to shine light on something that's in the dark, it usually means that we have to bring it to someone in our community, right? Where the light can shine. Like the light shines in community because we were designed to be in community. It's why isolation usually just leads to more addiction, right? So, but it doesn't work if you bring it to someone who's not safe. You could have brought that problem. You could have brought this to someone who pushed you further into shame.
True.
That wasn't safe, right? So tell me about your friend and why you knew that was a safe place to bring it. What about her made it safe?
Well, obviously the first thing is she was one of the rare women that I knew who was in the program already. I didn't know her story and her background until later, much later. But what's so, interesting, ironic, but also just a God wink, is that we already had that meeting set up for that day. And it was the previous day that I had, had that tap on the shoulder. So the very next morning, I had the meeting set up with her, totally unbeknownst to me for this probably intended purpose. But to me, it was about a speech that the two of us were going to coordinate on, and it had nothing to do with any of this. But the moment she walked into my office, I just burst into tears and said, I think I have a problem. And, she was the exact person needed at the exact same time. And I just don't believe that there is a coincidence about that whatsoever. And she was just a safe place for me to land at the right time.
So after you told her, what did that feel like?
What was so funny about it was that she was like, oh yes, we can deal with that. Like, that is simple. We can go to a meeting at 5:30, no big deal. And, but this speech I'm really worried about. And I was like, are you serious? Like, I have just told you my biggest, darkest, deepest secret. And you're like, it's not that big of a deal. It's okay. And so, now obviously much later, I can reflect on that moment and realize, like, we're the ones that make it such a big deal. We're the ones that think we're only people on this earth that have this issue. We're the only people that think this way. And, no one would like me or care about me if they really knew me. And I think that that's what keeps so many of us, as we were kind of talking earlier, in those shameful secrets, is this belief that, we're all alone in it. So looking back on it now, it's just hilarious how she got me immediately laughing about it and realizing, like, girl, you are not alone in that. There are so many other people that are like you, all over this world. And that we can deal with just like anything else. And, I certainly didn't feel that way about 20 minutes earlier. So,
yeah. So you were in a different career at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to venture to guess that this experience launched you into what you're doing now. It's part of the path that you took. And I don't think that it's any coincidence that now you're a safe place for women to go to shed their shameful secrets so that they can move forward in their life, right?
Yes.
So how does this experience of being the person who needed a safe place to go, how has that changed the way that you've become a safe place for people?
Gosh. To be honest, I've never really looked at it that way, but that is so perfect. It's so eloquently put. I mean, yeah, I never would have been able to create the space for other people to be authentic and take down their walls if I couldn't be as real and authentic as I needed them or wanted them to be. I needed to go through the process of having this transformative experience and going through that pain and knowing how difficult it is to really take down those walls that you've built up for yourself and the barriers to eventual success. That was my big wall. That was my big barrier. Like I couldn't ever get to where I wanted to go, which is being as big and bold of a person as I really wanted to be and felt called to be. But I knew that wall stood between myself and the career that I eventually wanted. I knew that I couldn't, be someone that could truly help women in the way that I wanted until I resolved this issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, now I think about it as being able to comfort them. And when they have the type of tears and the type of moments that I had, saying to them, I get it. Like, I know how hard this is to let all of this go. But these, bags, these 50-pound packs that we carry along with us, that we've gathered along the way, which have been disappointments or, just bad moments that were, shameful moments, all of those, it's like if each time one of those happens, we're picking up another 50-pound pack and we're taking it with us. We may not realize we are, but we are. And until you heal that part of yourself and put those down, you really can't rise to the level that you're capable of rising to. And that's what I love to be able to see within these women is their capacity to rise, to become the women that they want to become. And then I'm able to help them know that the way to get there is shoring up their internal foundation before they build up the external. I always tell people, like, my life was built on this Jenga tower, that when you pulled one block out, everything toppled. And that one block could have been a flat tire or a child that was sick. All of it sent me into a tizzy because I was so out of balance and didn't have this strong internal foundation built on self-love and faith I knew those things, but I really wasn't leaning on them because I was so externally focused. And so I really had to learn how to reverse the entire process and, love from the inside out. And that's what I love to help women realize is, like, you need to go through that process even when you're building a business of your own as well, because it won't matter what other people have to say then. It won't matter that some people don't like what you do. Mm-hmm. You'll know that you love what you do. And then from that, you will emanate that love that will be magnetic to mm-hmm. other people. They won't know why they love what you're doing or who you are, but it will be because you are doing it the opposite way that most people are doing it. You're not focused on the external, you're focused from the internal out.
Sallie, thank you so much. Listeners, if you are somebody who is listening today and maybe you're that person who has something that you've been hiding and that it's time to let it go, we just want to encourage you to find a safe place to go bring that to. And it's not uncommon, actually, Sallie, I didn't know this part until today, that you went to your counselor first. Sometimes that's easier. They're anonymous. They're required to keep your confidentiality. And sometimes the easiest place to go first and just shed some light on what's going on is with a counselor, because it's not as scary. We're all afraid of the fear of being found out, right?
Yeah, right.
And so maybe right now you're not ready to let someone else in your personal world that could tell other people, or that you're ready. Maybe you're not ready for that, but maybe a counselor is a good first step for you. But we want to gently invite you out into the light with us. And we want you to know that it's so much better out here. It's beautiful and it's warm, and Jesus is just there, and he is just ready to embrace you. And so if you're in that place, like, reach out to us on Instagram, or find a counselor, or find a good friend that who will say, that's no big deal. We've got this together. Find someone like that. Sallie, do you have anything to add to that?
I just always want to assure women that you're never alone. Whatever it is that you're telling yourself is, yeah, but my situation's different. That was my story for a long time. Like, yeah, you might be struggling, but my situation's different. I can't share mine because of X, Y, and Z. I would just say that, I used to think I'm terminally unique. And it was actually quite a relief to realize that I wasn't, that I was just like everyone else, in the way that we all suffer, and that I'm not alone in this, and that there are a lot of other women who are going through whatever it is you're going through. I can assure you there are other women out there who are going through what you're going through. And so, just like you said, Becky, reach out. What is waiting for you on the other side of it is that level of fulfillment you have looked your whole life for, and it's available to you.
The last thing is, if you are already out here in the light with us, then be a safe place for people. Become the kind of person that people can bring their darkness to, and become a safe place. Look for opportunities to bring people out into the light with you. Because that's how we start this, because the beginning of purpose, if everyone who's listening here is wanting to find their purpose and live it out, but the beginning of that road, just like Sallie's, is stepping out into the light and bringing everything with you. And once you do that, all of a sudden your purpose becomes really clear, and it kind of just unfolds right before you, right? So
absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining us. This is the More Than Me podcast, sharing stories of women who decided to move outside of themselves and claim a higher purpose, because together we are more. So if you enjoyed today's show, please go leave us a review on iTunes and Google Play. This really helps our ratings so that more women can listen to this podcast. And again, you can find out more about this movement in detail on morethanme.com. This is episode 6, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.